everything was perfect, but I had no idea it was coming that way. So it's kind of like that trust of just going with what's there and knowing that there's this part of a whole bigger context evolving that I don't get to see.
Yeah, I bet my video starts getting some hits now because people are starting to pick up on linear time dropping and that there's no time.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's gotten about 80 hits so far, something like that. But
cool. When did you post it?
Oh, before I came here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was at the other place. Because I've only posted one video since I've been here, and that was our thing that we did.
Okay.
But I've been getting movement that's like, okay, start posting in different ways. So I'm starting to learn a little bit about Twitter so that I can express there. Facebook I've already been doing. I think that's going to drop away. And I'll probably pick up more on some of the video stuff, but I don't know how long YouTube's going to be around.
Yeah. They're shooting themselves in the foot as far as things that are going on. I'm like less interested and do less on YouTube all the time.
So I might get a Vimeo account. I was looking at BitChute too. A lot of those you kind of have to pay for. You can't do much with them without paying for them. But, you know, maybe that just gives you the ability then to have a little more of a say on your content than.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't hijack your videos. You know, I'll be getting and watching something that's interesting and all of a sudden there's an ad that pops up where you're forced to watch an ad saying the video will start after the ad. So you can't even interrupt or skip it anymore now. They're forcing you to see it. And I'm like, I'm not interested in you forcing my attention to places. So it's, I don't do that as often anymore.
If you're not subscribed as a YouTube subscriber, then they force you to watch the ads because that's how they're doing the money exchange with the people making the videos that want to make money off of, you know, having their stuff up.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even
of it. Yeah.
I don't even know how that marketing works. I haven't. Yeah, for me, it would just be a platform to talk.
Yeah. Another avenue.
Yep. Another avenue.
So tell me about the time, what was it? Time
Trap?
Time Trap.
Okay.
That was a movie, right?
Yeah. So these, this guy, his parents were one of a number of hippies that went missing, like in the early 70s. And he found a notebook that was left behind that talked about the symbols and stuff on the walls and stuff there. And that notebook had been made over time where it showed all these different people in history that had gone missing that had connection to do with a specific location of finding the Fountain of Youth. And so he wasn't really interested in looking for the Fountain of Youth per se as finding what happened to his parents. So he went looking for this area and knew that he had stumbled across something significant. He had one of his students that he had been doing expeditions with, kind of geology kind of expeditions. He wouldn't let him come with him, but he brought his dog. And I thought, you're not telling somebody your location. You're bringing a dog, and you're going to a place where there's a history of people disappearing. Okay. So he gets there, and it reminded me of a dream that I had where the density of one reality versus another was different. Where I was moving through, I was able to fly, and all of a sudden I hit this really dense air that slowed me down. It was like time slowing down. But I was determined to push through it. And when I did that, the whole thing collapsed and dropped. So it reminded me of that. That's all I got to say about that. The movie showed him going into this cave and experiencing something similar. So he saw someone in the cave with like a lantern in his hand. So he went and grabbed some of his stuff, his backpack, told the dog to stay, and he goes into the cave, and the dog is trying to stop him. And he's threatening the dog with obedience school. So he goes into the cave, and he runs into this wall that he can feel in front of him. He can see through it. And to me, this represents a little bit what people call the looking glass. And for me, I've called it the mirror, because that's the way I saw it through myself. I saw it as more of a mirror, a liquid mirror, than a looking glass. And he reached into it. He could put his arm through it, and his arm came out wet. And so he knew he was stepping into something that he didn't know what it was. But he had a rope attached to him, so he assumed, I guess, that it was okay. So he goes in through this liquid air to the other side. And he's looking around, and pretty soon he discovers he's not alone. And there's voices that are actually being spoken. And they're saying in the background in words, it says, because I had the CC on, disincarnate voices. Or disembodied voices.
Disembodied voices.
And so that's going on in one scene. And they start another scene up where these kids decide to get together and go looking for him. Because it's been a couple of days, they haven't heard anything, he's not back. So they've packed up their crap and they're leaving. And it's a couple of girls. One brings her little sister, and she brings her little friend. And then there's there's an older boy who was part of his geology class. And so they all pack up. The girls have the same father, or two of the two sisters have the same father. So it's their Jeep that's being driven. So they go and they find the hippie Jeep. The hippies that went missing, they find their van. And they know that their friend, their geology friend, is in the location because his book was left behind. And so he goes in, or they get their stuff together and they go in the cave. Actually, they took a different entrance than he took. They later find out he took a different entrance. So they're all in the same thing. And these kids find where the people from the early 70s actually disappeared. It was actually where they had entered. They found the rope and it looked like it had been severed. And the rope was really old, so they knew it wasn't the geologist's rope because they kept calling for his name and he wasn't answering. So as they shimmied down, they left one person at the top, but they left the young one who had no way to drive the Jeep to go for help. He had a radio, and once they got down there, the radio communication stopped. And the time was different down in the cave versus up at the top. So they could look up at the top and see the sun making rotations. And they thought that each rotation was a day. And later they found out it was a year. and it was spinning really fast. So the time in which they were down in the cave, all of mankind kind of came to an end and ended up on a ship headed for Mars. Well, they didn't know all this stuff. And so at one point, they find these cavemen people down in the cave because they were keeping alive through the fountain of youth that was down there. And it's like they were very barbaric. There was no compassion. It was all survival mode. That's all they knew was survival. There was a lot of parallels to humanity in this. So they're down in this cave, and I guess as humanity evolved off planet on this ship, and they were in connection with Mars somehow, which is a connection to what I'm about to talk to you about. So it was no coincidence that I ran into that movie last night and didn't watch the one we talked about. And so I'm trying to keep this simple because there's a lot more to the story than what I can give it. I can't give it to you in linear time. You have to watch it.
This was on Netflix.
Yeah, but it might be on Prime. I think it was done in 2017. So the one girl is the only girl. There's one girl there who's able to climb. The dude fell and broke his arm. The other older girl, she severely twisted her foot, and she would be able to climb. The little girl was too small. So the only other adult and good at climbing was the other girl. But they couldn't just give her a rope because the rope that they had left wasn't enough to get her up there. There was no safety mechanism. She just had to step into her fear and take one step at a time and go, because she was the only hope to get to the top, because they thought this Furby kid was up there. Well, she gets to the top, climbs through the hole, and I'm not sure I'm giving this to you as it happened in the movie, but she goes through the hole and everything is gone. It's like a desert when she gets to the top, and the sun's doing these weird laps, and the people at the bottom are having a different time experience than she's having. So only she's experiencing 30 minutes at the top, and she sees through these clouds this triangular shaped object, and it doesn't look like a ship because it looks like it has an open center, but it is a triangle with an open middle, and it matches something that, let me show you. My muscles, man, all of this, these symptoms that I'm going through, my muscles are going through something. Okay, so it was similar to this. That was given to me. Okay, so she climbs back down because there's nothing up there, but she videos what she sees on her phone, and she takes it back down. So she's got a camera on her hip, and she's got a phone, and the camera on her hip is videoing. So that's what helped them figure it out, because the Furby guy was videoing from the top and they were videoing from the bottom. And that's how they started to figure out it had to do with time. The older guy did. And so he gets to the point where it's been a week, he's out of food at the top, and this kid is freaking out. Like, he's the most fearful one of the bunch. That's why he stayed at the top. But he realizes he's not going to make it if he doesn't go looking for them, because he doesn't have keys to the vehicle. And so he gets a rope and he starts to climb down, and the rope breaks like all the other ropes broke, because the time lapse would go at the top and it would create the rope to be old, and it would break while he was coming down. So he comes down and he gets injured pretty bad. And at that point, the camera was still rolling. He ends up waking up, and he's looking in the camera, and he's calling for help because he can hear them, but he doesn't see them. And they can hear him. They're like, well, that's not Furby's voice, because it sounds like it's in a different time. He sounded older. So he's calling for help, and they're not believing that it's him, but he's videoing as he's calling for help. So the girl climbs back down. She finds Furby. He's dead. And it looks like his neck's been broken. So they assume he died from the fall. And they're all kind of freaking out, crying, and, going through all of that. They pick up the camera and they start playing the camera. And on the camera, they see these, they look like cavemen, come in and basically attack him and hit him in the head with a rock. Even though he's laying there injured, he's not attacking them. They're afraid of him, so they automatically attack. Kind of like kitty versus monster. Anyway, kind of like what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
So these kids then go through another wave of crying because they're blaming themselves. They're going through guilt because they realize it was him calling for help, and they didn't think it was. And then there was another scene where they saw that his camera had been smashed. And they were like, wait a minute, we were there and we saw the camera wasn't smashed. So who smashed it? They realized that those beings that came in and killed him smashed the camera. And they smashed his head. So when they first found Furby, he wasn't dead. But anyway, that part's all mixed up. So this movie kind of did a mind fuck on me. So because knowing what I know about parallel timelines and potentials about being in different dimensions, and then watching that movie, I was like, oh shit, I need a drink. And knowing how a lot of these movies are planting seeds to help us know what's really happening.
Right.
And so I'm looking at this, them play out these roles. And they were going to go up and climb up again. They found enough rope that was okay, that had fallen down to the bottom, that they felt like they could kind of pull each other up with the rope that they had as a team. That meant everybody had to go. The injured, the young girl, everybody was going to be risking their life. They got about halfway up, and all of a sudden this beam of light shot through the hole and came down, and it turned into this like steel iron ladder. It just like unfolded like you would see in a sci-fi movie. So the girl at the top takes a hold of it and starts to climb up it, but the steps are like really far apart, so it's taken a lot of her upper strength to climb it. And all of a sudden, this big, tall being with a mask comes down. And intuitively, I knew this was not a bad thing, but they went into the mode of fear. So she's climbing down and they're running from him. And this guy is taking out, these cavemen start attacking him. And as soon as they start attacking him, he didn't try to kill them, but he used like a noose. Remember me talking about the noose?
Yeah.
Around their neck. And it was red lights. So remember that part. So he wraps their neck in a noose. And he goes on, he's collecting water from the fountain, I think to take back to the ship. And then he sees them and he goes walking towards them. And I think he knows who they are. So he was from Earth that had been dismantled way back when they went missing. And he knew who they were. And I wasn't coughing till now. So he gets attacked by the cavemen as he's trying to help. The older kid got stabbed by one of the cavemen and he was really sick. He got hit in the head and attacked. And so he was trying to put him in the water to heal him. And the girl was freaking out, trying to stop him. And he's trying to gently push her back as he puts him in the water, because he can tell her compassion. She has compassion. Versus the cavemen were totally survival mode.
Yeah.
And so it was showing how like all time playing out all at once in a time trap. So it was showing the cavemen, it was showing these guys from the 60s, 70s, and it was showing the kids from what represented time now, all in the same cave. And so he gets him in there, and he's able to revive him. Well, then he gets attacked by the caveman people, who then take him down because they end up hitting him in the head. He loses his mask. He can't breathe there. He's trying to, with his last breath, show, I can't breathe, Noos. Yeah. He's trying to show these kids on these devices that he has that can put TV up in the air. You know, we've been seeing some of these sci-fi movies come out where they have devices that can press a button and you see a TV in the air. So he's showing them news channels of their history, of how they went missing and that people have been looking for them. And then he shows them what happened to the earth. And so they're taking in, I'm getting goosebumps, they're taking in all of, you know, their parents going through this grieving process of them being gone, and then what's happened to the earth since they've been gone. Oh my God, God bumps. And woo! And so they're processing all of this of what's going on while he's trying to show them with his last breath. So they try to put the mask back on him, but he was out of time. He only had so much, you know, that he could be down there. So eventually, I think that they revived him. They're trying to get the fountain of youth to this guy, the water, because they realize the cavemen are picking up the water and they're reviving each other as they're going through this battle. There's a battle that's happening through another, it's kind of like a looking glass, but they have to go through this very dense space and they're trying to get out is what's happening. They go through and they go through this battle and they come in and they're all injured. And so they're being revived by the people in the cave that are left behind with the fountain water. At some point, they start getting stuck in the density between the worlds because it's becoming denser and they can't cross over between the worlds. And so this boy finds his parents, or no, the geologist had found his parents, and they were dead. They were laying there dead, and they had maintained their youthful appearance, but they had been killed by the cavemen. Now, he ends up getting attacked by the cavemen, and they pierce him all the way through his body. The boy finds him finally before he dies, and he sees his parents, and they know it's the parents, the geologist's parents, because at this point he's put together pieces between what he found in the book and what was shown to him by the guy who was off planet, who was human, but he was very, very tall, like a giant human. Like they described him as 8 foot tall. But, we know that we became shorter because of the fall. I don't know if you know that, but I knew that. We became a shorter species.
I hadn't heard that. I'd heard other things, but not as associated with the fall. But
so he's like, look, the fountain is right around the corner. We can revive you. He's like, I won't make it. He goes, I'm telling you, I'm done. And he's like, by the time you get there and come back, I'll be gone. And so he said, well, I have to try. So he's running back trying to get some of this water. And then they realize that they can probably revive the other guy at the same time. And there was another scene. Okay, so they end up not making it back to the professor. They end up getting attacked again as they're trying to revive the guy that came down. And the girl, and then they decide they're going to all climb up together at this point to try to get out. And they have the device. After they're not able to revive this guy, they have his climbing device that turns into a ladder. So they use it, they press the button, and it opens up, which sends a signal to the ship above. So the strong climber gets to the top, and the top turns into water that's swirling. And she's freaking out, but she starts to go through the water because, like, what, are they going to go back down? No. And then all of a sudden something grabs her and she freaks out. What was grabbing her wasn't a bad thing, but because of her fear, she saw these ugly hands with like nails coming out, like demon hands, because of her fear. So these parts I was picking up because that's the parts of duality I've been stepping into, of understanding the two sides of duality. And so she is pulled into the water, and he's trying to pull her back down, and she's like, and no air again. She's pulled into the water, and they finally get a breather put on her so she knows that she's not going to die, and she relaxes, and they pull her out of the water, kind of like the Matrix, where he's pulled out of the water. I had an astral dream about being pulled out of the water like that. And there's a lot of parallels with these things I've experienced astrally and physically that I think is why I had the time warp kind of holy fuck experience. Right. Okay. So so she goes through the water, and everything else below the water goes into a time warp where that moisture is being sent through the tunnel. So as they're starting to fall, because the ladder is gone now, a time warp was put into place where it turned that energy in that tunnel space that they climbed through. dense so that they wouldn't fall. It kind of let them hang in time. So as that was happening, all of a sudden you see these tentacles come down and wrap around these people who would have fallen and pull them up. At this point, I know it's benevolent. So it's pulling them up through the water. And they wake up out of this pool of water. So it brings them up to the top. And as they lift up out of this water, they're like, holy crap, they realize they're on a spaceship. So Furby, I think, had come up, and then Furby and the professor were the last two to be pulled up. And I think they pulled up their guy that was down there too, that got injured. And
I ran out.
Yeah, but with his last breath, he was trying to help them instead of help himself get out, because all he had to do was reignite the ladder and they would have come down for him. So it was like he was sacrificing himself. Remember that part? That sacrificial, yeah, shit. So, so all these folks get pulled back up through. The kids come out to meet Furby and the professor to explain kind of what happened. And they're like, yes, the earth is not what it was, but we have each other. So they're looking for the positive pieces of it, and explain that they have a lot to talk about. And that's kind of where the movie ended, was there. And then, but some of what they showed, this guy was showing them on the screen while they were down in the cave, Obama was on it, and Trump was on it.
Okay.
And that's why I started going, oh shit. When the movie ended, I was like, they're showing us what's happening, because I just wrote about feeling the sense how the earth for me became a ship. And that moving into this place, this new space, we are creating the new Jerusalem, which is a ship. It is not, it's a new earth, but the earth is flat and it's round both. So I knew when the flat earther came out that there was something about it that was true because of the passion that they had behind it. So in the holodeck part of Earth, the 3D holodeck, it's round. But as you become part of the real, it's flat. It's a ship. So as you're collapsing the linear time aspect of this experience into no time that I talked about in my video, you then start to begin to experience where the astral plane of these different realities merge together. And you experience them in real time. Real time, there is no time. It's all now. A now experience. And we're time travelers. So we are literally time traveling based off of what our now experience is. How we interpret it is actually how we're moving through time. So if it's experienced in fear, you're going to match up to more fear. If it's experienced in love, you match up to more love. Okay, so now step back a second to something that I discovered yesterday. And I actually said something about it on Twitter, and there's some military guy following me now. Because I talked about how there's 2 Trumps. One Trump's going to be assassinated, I believe. One Trump is not. The real Trump that's been doing all the stuff behind the scenes to help free us is one version of Trump. This is why I saw him in the astral plane as Darth Vader, that there was 2 seen as one.
Okay.
Then I was like, okay, holy shit. This matches up to what I just posted about Puttin. There are 2 Puttins. The dark Puttin was killed, taken out, gone. There is a light version of Puttin that's in a duplicate body that's now on Earth helping to bring in the new. So I'm telling you, this has all been a mind fuck for me in the past 24 hours. So the new Puttin was dropped off at Puttin's house, the original Puttin's house, and the wife knows it's not the original Puttin. So she ends up finally, and they start sleeping in separate quarters. She finally says, "You're not my husband. I want a divorce." And he's like, "Well, I'm not attracted to you." So he gives him, he agrees to the divorce. So there was a divorce. And all of this, she talked about in videos that were on YouTube that have been pulled off.
Oh, she actually had posted stuff on that?
And those have been taken down, but there was enough people that saw them that are talking about it still. And these people have created very large followings. We're following Q and all of that. So there is a positive side of Q and a dark side of Q. The positive side of Q are those who realize Q is here to teach us about God inside. The other side of Q has to do with that video I just sent you. And it's connected to the Orion Moors. It's connected to the Mars alignment, where folks are still living out that reality is not within them, it's separate from them. So those who are not stepping in to know thyself within, that's how this that's how I'm seeing it here in my head, is they're going to have a different experience. That horn in that video that I sent you.
Yeah, the long one with the.
They just did a ceremony at the Capitol, and they think that sounding of that horn is the last trumpet. Well, it is the last trumpet, but not in the sense that they think it's the last trumpet. Because those who are interpreting their reality from fear, the maskers, those who see God outside of themselves, that trump is the ram's horn. The ram's horn goes all the way back through religion, back and back and back and back and back. I can send you a video that talks about how that horn is connected all through religion, through Christianity, it's connected to Rome, it's connected to Egypt, and it's connected to a deity by the name of Amen, A-M-E-N, no man, was this is as far back as I've gotten. I know it goes back to the Draconian, but I haven't found the full connection. I was working on that right before we got started. So the Amen which is a deity that was created that people in Egypt followed. And it was remade into other deities over time in Egypt. And it's all written in the stones on the walls there. But you know, when people in Christianity use this amen, they don't realize that they're adding to the power of what's been holding the power on this planet to overpower. They're giving power to it because they're praising it. So that's another piece.
They're acknowledging its existence, so therefore they're reinforcing it.
Mm-hmm. And I knew this piece. When people pray, P-R-A-Y, they're praying and being prayed upon because they're praying to an outside God. And pray is actually P-R-E-Y. Their energy is being loosed when they pray outside of themselves. And they're praying to this amen, thinking it's God, when they are God. So they're putting another God before themselves and destroying themselves.
Interesting. Okay.
Did you follow all of that?
Yeah. Well, because a lot of it's stuff I've kind of already have researched and kicked. So a knock and amen, and you're saying amen, but it's like amen, amen, and depending on how you pronounce your A.
It goes It goes farther back than the Anunnaki.
Right. And they're the ram's horn was supposed to be a symbol of the celestial from the equinox, from the precession of the period of the ram that was supposed to be the harbor of that epoch that was taking place back in Egypt 5,000 years plus ago. And so that was like adapted in that time as a harbinger for the epoch of the ram, which was when a lot of the religions then started forming to what we know of as today. They were forming their different factures type of deal. And so they're using that as a kind of a pagan symbol. So there's stuff that I've read about, and I've kind of come to that.
It's all inverted. All of it throughout the time that we know. All this mythology is inverted, the opposite of what is true. And these horns, whenever they used that horn, they were literally, in a literal sense, calling forth the dark man, or what we know as Satan. So Satan can be any being that represents that which is not in alignment with natural universal law, which is God. So when we're in alignment with natural universal law, which is what God truly is, which is what we are, that is how we find, that's how we realize that the universe is literally in here and not out there.
Not outside of us, yeah.
We've been turned inside out to see things outside of us, when the reality is inside of us. And what I was working on last night before I watched that movie totally aligns with all of this. So I wrote down,
man, my ears are buzzing right now.
I bet.
Buzzing and thumping while you've just been.
Yeah.
Just letting you know what the physical.
This is a lot to take in. So I'm glad we're recording it. This is a lot to take in, but these pieces, anybody who knows any of these pieces, it's enough of a popcorn trail to start to put the pieces together for yourself.
Right.
And so let's look at the word angel. Because we worked with the 12 archangels, and that was part of our path. And then
Right.
we went into questioning some of the things that we weren't told or were told. And so we've had this roller coaster of who the fuck were we talking to?
Right.
So we look at duality. Angel is also Legan, legion. Religion is religion. You have the RE-LEGION.
Yep.
Okay, so if you look at the word angel in the positive aspect, so angel is something we created, we made it up from within us to give ourselves a way of looking at this in a positive way. So the positive angle of looking at the angel is that it is an angle held within our physical body. And that's what makes the two wings. And there's two wings that sit behind this part of the brain. And that is the, you remember me talking about having that vision. And I remembered having the vision 16 years ago, and all of it started to come together. It kind of looks like a butterfly. It's called a, oh shit.
Yeah, I read up on it with a link that you sent me. Yeah, I'm not recalling the name.
It's
On the tip of my
it's
tongue.
a bone. It's a bone that sits right behind your nose. Damn it, my brain just went blank.
Right.
I know that
damn.
right.
Yeah,
Sphenoid bone.
Right.
Okay.
There you go.
So also remember this. They're talking about where this virus stuff came from. And they're talking about the bats. And they're talking about
SARS.
yeah, bats and there's something else. Bats. Anyway, they're saying that it came from the bats. So bats is part of, because it looks like a bat. So there is, but there's another representation of the sphenoid that's connected to the coronavirus. So all of this is still being produced from inside of us. It's not separate. But you see it as something separate, that's when it's developed and experienced as that's outside of you. And it can harm you. Okay. Let me try to go back to where I was with what we were talking about. Because this is dense shit. Like, this is like a whole fucking can of worms just opened up in the past 24 hours. Because it's taken a lot of pieces of what I was already documenting, and it's kind of coming together. It's like the broken vase is going,
yeah,
becoming a whole vase. All right, so when you look at religion and you take the RE off, you have legion, which is the negative of angel, the negative of angle. So when we look at the negative aspect or the fear aspect of it, you have legion or demon. That's where angels and demons come from. We made it all up. It was whether we chose the positive or the negative angle from within us.
Or the left or the right eye, as you
And
mentioned.
so it can manifest as fucking this person with wings, or it can manifest as this ugly thing coming at you with big long nails, which was representation of that time trap movie. When she saw in the water, she saw these demon fingers. And that scared her more. But it was because she was in fear. That's why she saw it that way.
Right.
And once they got the oxygen on her, now look at what I'm doing with my face.
You're masking your face.
Mm-hmm. So when we're given oxygen, the fear goes away. You taketh oxygen away by covering your oxygen source, you hold more fear. So all the stuff that's been happening on this planet to deoxygenate people in so many different ways, the chemicals, the nanotechnology, the 5G connecting to the nanotechnology, the arsenate that's been put in the water, all of it's connected.
Carbon levels that increase, that reduce,
Yes.
oxygen levels also.
Yes. And so they've been manipulating the atmosphere to reduce oxygen also. So this all even goes back to the dinosaur age of what happened to the dinosaurs. If you think about it, we know they were deoxygenated. So
I'm not with you on that. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, if you start looking this stuff up and you look it up in correlation to the dinosaurs, you'll see connections.
Okay.
Because I was finding some of these connections like early on, I think the beginning of this year, but I didn't know how it connected to this, what we're talking about now. So it's like all those pieces, I was putting together this vase over the last year and a half that I didn't understand what the vase looked like. So a lot of the vase came together in the past 24 hours.
Okay.
And there is a connection to the do-re-mi scale, the do-re-mi fa sol la ti do. That hasn't fully come in, but I was working on that today too. This is good that I'm coughing.
It's clearing.
That energy that I said, I feel hung here like a noose. This, me talking about it, is going to help the noose clear for me. All right. I gotta take a deep breath. Holy shit. I'm feeling a little bit dizzy. It's not so much dizzy here, though. I'm feeling the dizziness right here.
Yeah.
And that's different.
It's a shift in elevation that's happening vibrationally, and it's sourcing here. Feels like you're kind of spinning and twirling with a connection to your chest that's rotating, a vortex. That's the image I get anyway.
Yeah, and I'm feeling some emotion again coming forward. It's like, whew. So yesterday when we were talking and I said, oh, I'm getting hot. Something's burning away. What I came to realize last night is the Kundalini energy in my body has been coming. That's what I've been feeling.
Okay.
All this time. And I didn't know it was my Kundalini. And I've been going, what the fuck is that? So some of this is giving me a good laugh.
What we don't know.
No, because what's been left in my left that's been moving right has been there, trying to mind fuck me into thinking something's gone wrong. Because we've been having some of those conversations, or I'm like, ooh, but is it this? Is it this? And then I know when I don't feel grounded that something's off. So that's why I wanted to shower before we talked, because I was like, oh shit, something else just came together. I need to take a shower. Okay. So as we're having this conversation, it's making me laugh. Okay.
Good. That's grounding too.
Well, yeah, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the broader picture as we're talking. Even as we're talking, more of the vase is becoming known. It's almost like, it's like channeling, but it's more like the ocean can't give the drop more information until the drop lets go of some of the seaweed. That's how I'm going to describe it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's like I'm letting some of the seaweed go, and now the drop is clarifying itself. Or this, the oil. Jeez Louise. Okay, so when, look at that. When we're digging for oil, they go through water to reach the oil. That's why, in the US, they've been digging for oil, but they're out there on these big rigs in the middle of the ocean digging for oil. And you hear about oil spills happening out on the ocean, like they had the big one on the Gulf.
Right.
Well, that's part of the earth. So we were looking at how it was affecting the life and all of that, and people were in compassion to help the wildlife, and thinking that it was a really bad thing, but it's part of the earth's process anyway. It's used to recycling the oil back down.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful that we've all come together, even the oil companies came together to help the animals. The savior in us. The good parts of us, anyway. The good parts that, yeah. Anyway, that's a two-sided sword.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So we're releasing the oil, the goo, out of the drop.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. So I was calling it seaweed. I'm calling it oil. So more of the oil that was in my drop became less dense, and I was able to receive more of the ocean, the knowledge in the ocean, which is God, us. So we get a clear picture or a clear reception of the ocean's purity, the purity of the information when the oil is thinning out. And as we're in this session, it's thinning out even more. That's why I was getting the tickle, and that's why my heart started spinning. And I got the recognition in that moment as my Kundalini spinning here.
Starting to rotate.
It's rotating. It's going to pop through. I know it's like right there. And I kept going into this mode of learning about the Kundalini because I knew it was right there, and I was so uncomfortable here.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's right there. What the fuck am I missing? And then remember, when we go into that mode of no answer, that's when we lose the answer completely. And we're not able to move forward because we don't see the answer and we're trying to find the answer. So yesterday, when I got the recognition that the Kundalini is there no matter what, it's not something that we have to create. It's already there. We just have to get out of the way and stop thinking that something's gone wrong, and stop thinking that we have to cultivate it. We just have to allow it.
Yep.
And when we have these physical symptoms, knowing that that's the Kundalini talking to us. That's our chi, our life force energy speaking to us directly. And that is our God source talking to us. Wow.
Good.
Holy shit. Is some things coming together for you as I'm talking?
Well, pictures that kind of come, yeah, as
Yeah.
so one of the things that came to me was also was the oxygenation with your droplet of water. Is
Yeah.
that when oil in there, it affects its absorption of oxygen. So what do they do in a lot of lotions? A lot of the lotions that people put on their body is petroleum based.
Yep.
That steals out oxygen from their skin so that they can't breathe and oxygenate. So
That's
as you're losing the oil out of the droplet, it allows more oxygen and more connection for that information to come through.
right. That's a great point. That's one of the things I stopped using. So over the last few years, after I, did my dump of my house and business, I started to realize, backpacking with a little suitcase and a backpack, you can't carry much. I end up dropping away all of the skin products I used to use and ended up with coconut oil as a base oil I use for just about everything.
Yeah.
It's my toothpaste, it's my toothpaste now, my skin lotion, all of it. And like even since I've been here, I realize we don't even need body soap. So I've like pushed away body soap because I go to the ocean almost every single day.
Yeah.
And what I came to realize is that we don't need even deodorants because we're supposed to sweat. And that's what keeps that lymph, which is connected to our chi, all of that's connected together. So when we're physically having an issue with the lymph system, it's just the physical evidence of what's been going on with the chi energy system. And all of it can be reversed. Every
Yeah.
bit.
Deodorant is made to cover up a not pleasant smell, which are toxins that are leaving the body through the sweat. And when you're eating in alignment, there's no toxins to go through. There's not a bad scent to your perspiration.
Exactly. So it's the dirtier the lymph, the more we smell. And that makes sense because I use chlorella, and I noticed that even as I used the higher forms of chlorella, like I didn't have BO. And
Yep.
the more greens I have in my diet, I knew that when I became, years ago when I played with being vegan raw, I noticed that like body odor went away.
Yep.
But I also noticed I was connecting to realms and connecting to things in a whole new way that I had connected to before. And it was around that time where I got confused and ended up, anyway, it's a recognition of when some things started to go away for me in the physical body. It's kind of how all of it came full circle back to that time period.
Yeah.
So I was in trust of myself moving forward, and something happened where I stopped trusting myself. And that's where I hit a wall, and things started to fall back. And then I was able to be manipulated because I didn't know any better. I was the girl who was kitty, kitty. There's nothing there that can get you.
Right.
But I was falling towards the, I don't like to call it Satan, but it is. It's towards that left side of the way we think and using the left brain where we're abandoning ourselves. So it just represents the coming from the fearful side more than the kitty kitty side. So the other thing that I was playing with very recently and started playing with again last night because of the whole angel thing was we have it mixed up. we call the light the good, and we call the dark the bad. And I started saying, okay, with everything is inverse, then how do we look at light as the potential of not being so good, and dark as being good? Yeah, that was another rabbit hole. So, but there was something there. So, love is not blind. It was hidden in the dark by fear in the left. The fear is represented in the false white light that is blind. You're blinded by the light. So when people talk about having a near-death experience and they see the light, that is that same light they talk about in the movies where it erases, or that's the mind erase that you go through. So that's how they've kept the cycle in a mind erase. They're saying go into the light. And as soon as you go into the light, after you think you've died, you go into the light and they wipe your mind.
Interesting. Okay.
So you have the experience in your mind that you died, but you didn't die. That's a mind fuck.
So
All
something
right.
allows to open up in that case because the belief shifts for those people. That's
So,
like, go ahead.
right. So the light is left. The left, think of that as the left eye. And the dark is right. And right is heaven. And we've been playing in the left, which represents earth. As it is in heaven, it is on earth. So we have heaven and earth are in our head, inside the universe, inside of us. All right, so I wrote then, with the heart, we cross the dark to the right. And then I made a cross symbol with the word cross. Okay, so right can also be seen as raw, GHT. And this is also the word, if you take RAGHT now and you move it around in an anagram, you can make true, a TRAGH, true. So the truth is in the right and the false is in the left, where we've abandoned what we truly are to become personified, which is the who's we play out, the fear, belief patterns, the experiences, all that stuff is over here in the left. The ideas, the beliefs, the hesitations, the patterns, the looping, it's all left. The right side, when we're aligned with that, we drop linear time, where we are trapped in false white light, which is where what we can say is the negative angle, when we look at the word angel, and where we experience the demon or the dark side of ourselves, because our mind produces it. So that's what we project out and see. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm letting you process.
Okay. So the word false, when you take the word false, it becomes L, the first letter L, safe. L represents the light, and in the light, we feel safe. Hence, the left eye and connection to getting to the ability to see past the darkness is it here, the third eye, which we can't cross if we're predominantly in the left, because we want to feel safe. So in order to stay safe, we stay in the light. And we don't want to step into the dark. Which comes back to why we get hooked up here, which is connected also to the second chakra of creation. There's more. I'm giggling because this is like holy crap for me. I don't know if you're following what I'm saying, but I could take pictures of these notes and send them to you, and maybe you will find something that
Well,
resonates.
I'm following you, but I'm aware of that what you're wanting is a linear tracking and recording of your experience. Me interjecting my experiences haven't necessarily, it's not what you're looking for at this point in time. So,
So as I'm speaking, I'm just asking myself if you're following what I'm saying.
I'm following you.
Okay. So I take the word true.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down. And I underlined in the word false the letter L and the R in true. Because for me, it all represents left and right. Left and right. And so I was looking at that and I was like, all of a sudden I saw the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale coming back. La and fa are in false. There's potentially a so in there also because there's SE. And that, you know how sometimes things are spelled differently by, like in Hebrew, something is pronounced differently, but there's a different spelling, like in Latin.
Right.
So SE may also be so.
Okay.
In true, we have RE, Ray. We also have TE, T, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. We also have a TE that represents tea, like jam and bread, tea with jam and bread. Tea.
Right.
Um,
TEA.
the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale that we know, and I was looking at this on Wikipedia, is a diatonic scale. It was actually changed from an original scale that is different. Do was UT in the original scale. There was Re, Mi was MI, Fa, So was Sol, SOL, La did not change, but T was S, represented as an S instead of a TI. And Do, the last Do, was represented as a capital I. And this connects to a song that was written for St. John. And so if you go to Wikipedia and you look at You have to look it up under solfege scale, SOLFEGE scale. Look up Wikipedia and read what it says there, and you'll find a song that was written for St. John. Now, I know the whole saint thing is a farce. So when I look at it, I'm like, okay, where did the meaning actually get flipped? So I think that
Meaning for saint, or the meaning for the scale you're talking about?
the scale, because there's more than one scale. Like we're finding that the 440 hertz is not actually very healthy for us, as other types of hertz pitches are more healthier for our body than the 440.
Right.
So all that goes back to music. So all of this is all connected. This scale is connected to our Merkaba too. I just don't have that piece of the vase quite there yet, but I'm just sure, I mean, we're talking about what has come together so far.
Right.
Okay. Now, that horn that they blew at the Capitol, I know they thought that they were doing something amazing and that there is a lot of positive coming to the earth. I don't diss any of that. But the fact that there's still the misrepresentation of what that horn means, and they're using it, they're still using the power of Satan to keep that inversion in place, and they don't know it.
Right.
Because that horn represents the call of war, which is the alignment of Mars that's here with us now. So those who are aligning with God inside are going to have a different experience than those who are aligning with that horn in the way that they think they're calling in God or singing out to the trumpet of God. Because they see it as God outside of themselves, which is, but not the God they think it is. It is Amen, which is the God of war.
Yeah. Yeah, I got out of that just the separation when they were going through.
It's just the separation.
Separation.
So then, okay, this pops up because you know Avatar is like one of my ultimate favorite movies.
This fits in that just before I hopped on here, I saw a whole ad on Avatar 2 and 3 that they're filming right now, and there was a whole thing about it.
They've been filming it this whole time. They had an agreement with the Star Wars people to let them get that stuff out first. So all of this is being released to the public in linear time to try to wake people up. So those movies are done. They're done, but they're being shown as coming out in linear time. So, but as these come out, it's going to be the next layer. So the whole Q thing is not a bad thing. And those that have not jumped on the pony of God inside yet, it's not bad. The Q thing actually moves them forward in vibration. So they're closer to waking up to another layer to realize the God inside. That makes sense. It's like throwing a rope down to someone who doesn't know how to climb the wall yet by themselves, and you're pulling them up by the rope little by little till they realize they can climb it, that they don't need the rope.
Were you aware of the FBI has declared QAnon as a local domestic terrorist organization?
Because that's the separation. That's what quarantine is. Q, war, in time. I
Yeah.
saw that in the past 24 hours too. That's why I'm saying this is huge, man. Like, my world blew up, and it already blew up multiple times. I was like, when I talk about discernment grows naturally, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because, right, so my discernment grew naturally, and all of a sudden I started seeing other layers of this kind of surface. Okay.
Want to share something with you. Is the other day, because it ties into that conversation, and so I
Yes.
get some pieces of it. And so revisiting when I told you, when you were talking about being angry and fuck those who have tried to poison you, and I was like really got to a point of being pissed. What I realized, and I had processed it, but I didn't mention it, but it comes back into what you're saying here also, is that this inversion was happening through the manipulation of ourselves.
Yes.
So it was
Yes.
manipulation. So they don't have to take any accountability for what
Yes.
was done. They had our own creative ability
Mm-hmm.
turned and manipulated so that we're creating all of this with
Exactly.
ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what pissed me off, because I got a very
Yep.
visceral understanding of that. I was tweaked to create exactly the prison I was in, and they walk away scot-free basically
Mm-hmm.
with any accountability,
Right.
because they're using my own creative power as the person that I am, the I
Right.
am.
Right. And so
Create,
as long as we stay in that loop of time, they can loose our energy.
and we continue to create it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
Because
not like a manipulation that's happening outside of us. It's happening in
it
us.
is happening in us. And that's when I said we're flipped inside out.
Right.
That's why I said it that way, is we're flipped inside out, so that we keep it all going, all on our own. And they don't have to do anything but they're collecting the money.
Basically.
They have been the fucking bank collecting the money.
Right. And they
We produce the gold,
yeah.
and they collect the money.
It's one way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We are the quantum bank.
Yeah.
Literally.
They're mining. They're mining us with our work and our effort.
Right. Because they can't make their own gold. They don't know how. And they've been separated so long, they're unable to reconnect to the Godhead to realize they are from the divine, the same as we are. But they've stayed so long, so separated, that I don't even know that there is an ability. I don't even know how that works in universal law.
Well, it's all got to come together back anyway. I mean, no matter what
It will in some way, yeah.
all got to come, yeah.
Okay, so if we look at our head, I know this is getting kind of long, and we have our temples here. If the left side represents the earth and water, and the earth is getting colder. Crayons talked about that. We look at the light, and in the light, we think of being false lighted, which is like putting ice over our eyes. It's freezing, the freezing of time. So Isis, left eye, back to Egypt. The right side represents fire and air. And that's why all this time I've been having those episodes, for God, I don't know, a few years, 3 or 4 years, especially since I decided to leave that clinic behind and leave my house. I've been having like these fiery episodes, and I've had people say, oh, it's menopause, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. And I'm like, no, it's not menopause. I just knew it wasn't. I was like, I'm not sweating. Just my hands are on fire, my chest is on fire, my face is on fire, and it would kind of come and go, but I could feel it coming and it would just flush over. And so I didn't have the recognition that it was Kundalini until yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was just because I felt so hung up here. I was like, my left brain was trying to say, you're going to die. And my right brain was like, no, you know, there's no such thing as death. So I've had this tug of war going on the past couple of months between life and death, which is part of that last video we did together. That was a tug of war of life and death in real, being spoken about in real life.
As you experience, right?
Like it was, yeah. I'm so glad we recorded that and I put it up. All right, so in the right, if we look at the right as people see the Eye of Horus or Ra, it means one. But some people look at it as a deity, as in Horus. It is also aligned with the soul. So our soul alignment is in the right eye. It's not a deity. It is soul alignment, is what the eye represents. So we have temple.
Right alignment or correct alignment.
Mm-hmm. So we have the temples. Over here we have soul. And over here we have man or mon. Soul, mon, Solomon. We have Solomon right here.
Is that like a bridge? How do you see, is that the bridge? Because so what comes to mind is a bridge between the two hemispheres of the mind that is kind of bringing those together between
right.
the two.
So
of God and the temple of the human. Right.
So the O for me in the middle is a representation of
Sphenoid?
It's the sphenoid, it's the pineal, it's what we have known as the L. EL can also represent God. The 0 for me, I had always represented God for me for some reason. Because even when I would see number sequences, I went from seeing 44 a lot to seeing 404 and 505, 606. So I would look at the number and say, oh, look at that with God inside.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for years. Oh, look, there's God inside again. So 2 like numbers with a 0 in the middle represented God inside to me. That was my interpretation of it. Okay, so if you look at Isis, IS, Ra, EL,
In between.
what does it spell?
Release.
IsRaEl.
IsRaEl. Okay. Oh, going from left to right. Yeah.
So we're moving things from the left hemisphere, And so I also saw in a vision, I saw a rainbow right here. And I knew that rainbow to be these beings that I had been working with. I mean, I haven't seen them other than I've seen what they've shown me in these rainbow colors, you know, in my sleep visions or as I'm waking up. I see like this rainbow type structure, but it's not the rainbow same as what we see that we see in the sky. It's
Optically. Yeah.
it's an optically different. So I think I'm going to try to paint it. So, but it comes to me as a bridge that comes over from here to here. The last vision that I had of this bridge, I saw tons of silver stuck to this bridge, like it was accumulating on the bridge. That has something to do with my physical experience, because that silver is attempting to turn itself to gold. There's an alchemy happening within me. And I think that's why I saw it as accumulating on the bridge, like it was accumulating and becoming heavy on the bridge. So the L I'm sensing is the pineal, or what they call the black sun. And so some of this, what I'm saying to you right now, is things that I've learned along the way that I haven't fully understood, but now the vase is coming together for me to have my own understanding. So we have the temple, we have Isis, or is the ice. And we look at the word. My friend, I have a friend on Facebook who's always talking about sacrifice and makes ice big every time he uses the word. He says sacrifice. And I was like, so that's where the ice comes from. It's the melting of the ice, the sacrifice of this shit that we have created on earth to cross through the darkness that is behind the EL, which is the dark sun, into the one, which is our soul. Okay, and this is the other thing that I wrote down. The last time that I had a conversation, my conversations with God are like, I ask a question and then I wake up with an answer. So when I wake up, it's like, poof, the words are right there. It's not like someone spoke it in my ear. It's just there and I write it down. So I was asking about, my muscles are going through something and it hurts. Okay. Okay, so I was asking, or I was saying, I was requesting for some good energy movement. I'm eager to work on getting through my physical belongings, because I've got some stuff here I don't need. I've been hauling it around in my car. But I wanted the physical energy to do it, because I can sit in my chair all day and do this sort of thing and write. But to have the physical energy to do some of the physical things that I'm wanting to kind of, get out of the way. And I said, there are things kept in tow. I realized that things I'm keeping in tow inside my heart and things I'm keeping in tow physically are connected. And that tow is the noose that I've been feeling around my neck.
Okay.
And how I've noosed myself. So I was asking, let's see. Oh, so I was just making, I like to acknowledge whenever I'm journaling, acknowledge what I know. I know I'm keeping things in tow, and I know it's connected to the noose. So I wrote that. And I said, I am asking for clarity about what I've kept in tow that can go. The noose and my fifth energy center. And so then I always give thanks after I write stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I woke up, this is what God said to me. Death is in the thread. So that was a couple of days ago. And I still get, like I told you yesterday, I'm like, it's got to be given this way. Why can't it just be, why? So the why sets us up to be loosed, basically. Because the why puts you in a victim status. But I was irritated, that's a better word, that it comes through in code. But then I acknowledged to you yesterday, and interpreting the code is part of what I'm here to do. And so I'm being trained at the same time as I'm going through my own journey. I'm being trained for what I'm going to be doing. Right. So I had that recognition when we were talking yesterday. So let me pull this up. So I drew some symbols, and I also saw a triangle. If you look at the head this way, I saw a triangle go like this, and go like this, and go like this. And the person that I keep telling you about, Mike, on my Facebook page, his name was given to me in an astral experience. So that's why I reference back to his stuff, but the way he presents it, I can't follow it all. So I can't like read his stuff and know exactly what he's talking about, but I read it. And then I have my own personal experience where I'm able to then translate what's being shown to me through me because of what I saw that he posted. I was like, oh, it's because I don't understand his language. But he has truth that he's sharing. I'm just not understanding it with the language I speak.
Right.
Because he speaks it from his experience. And I'm like, I know there's something to this. And I know I'm reaching. And I had to make those acknowledgements to myself. You're reaching, and that's why you're not seeing. So just read and let it be. Read and let it be. And when I finally said that to myself over the last 24 hours, read and let it be. I saw what I was doing. And I relaxed. That's when I saw it. I saw that the Kundalini was already there. It's already in the right direction. It's already been activated. It's already been doing its thing, busting through the layers and thinning out the oils that are still in my drop that's unable to see the clear ocean. So that piece happened. And let's see, where was I going with that? Oh, I could also see the sign symbol I wrote out like this. That the symbol going down represents the belief in death, and the loop up is where we find life. But through the experience of life, if we're not coming to that recognition that life is inside of us, we loop back down into death. And we keep having that looped experience. So if you take the SIN symbol, SINE symbol, it's like this, where the bottom is the negative SINE or sin, and the positive up here, SINE, is life. And you take them and you flip them together, they make a complete circle, which is that loop that we call linear time.
Okay.
It's how they're keeping the mind looped with the idea of light, that the light is love. Well, it doesn't mean that the light's not love, as long as you're looking at the light with love. You're looking at the light with love through your soul. Or are you looking at it, life through man, earth, on the left? Because if you're looking at it through the man, earth, on the left, that's through fear. And that's the false light.
Yeah.
That keeps us in that loop. And that's linear time is here. Once this shit goes over that bridge here, the sphenoid, it gets put into the soul, which has been misrepresented by Horus. It's misrepresented to me. I even see like the word Ra is a misrepresentation because people think they're reaching out to a deity, and it's not. It is our soul. It is the sun. We are the sun because the sun is a star and we are stardust. So literally the right eye is a representation of what we truly are. We are fire. We are the sun. We are Ra. We are God.
We'll need to take a break here.
Okay. I'll hit pause. I gotta go too. All right.
All right. Good bio break.
All right. Say that again.
So what I was saying is that in the intellectual understanding of being inverted, of knowing you're being manipulated, and that there's manipulation going on, doesn't actually even still remove you from the manipulation or from the creation that I'm still creating for myself. Even though I kind of have an understanding and I know it's backwards, the creative source I am is still going off of the belief system. It's the experiential awareness that has to happen that shifts the belief system before something new can be created. So there's like a level of frustration of even knowing and being manipulated, but not being able to escape the manipulation, kind of like waiting for the experiential to shift enough. But it's like it has to come in order. You have to have the that you're in the manipulation to start off with to open up the opportunity. Otherwise, the beliefs just continue to be held in place. So you continue to create off of what that is.
Right. So something that I use sometimes whenever especially when I'm writing things down. This is what I did with false and true, light and dark. I was like, okay, there's something about this. That's why I'm thinking about it. I wrote them down and said, if I were to say this one is the opposite of this one, what does that look like? So how is this different than what I've been taught it is? And start using what I already know to be true as transparent truth and applying it in looking at it differently. So the natural discernment then kicks in, where I look at it and I'll be like, okay, I know everything's been inverted. So if I look at this knowing it was inverted, how might I look at it and know it as that being inverted? So that's how I started looking at light. I knew that there was false light, but I wasn't recognizing the word light as being false light. But when I recognized light as being part of the left eye, that's what brought it together for me, because I know the left eye is to be the eye of abandonment. The parts of us that we left behind. Those parts we've been playing out on earth as the man, as the man, as the man who forgot his soul. And you have the hemisphere that separates the two. And the hemisphere is part of our atmosphere, our at-most sphere. So we have our atmosphere side that keeps us the man, that we represent our own Satan. And then we have our soul over here that can be misrepresented or misunderstood through the distortions as being a deity, like worshiping the sun, or worshiping God outside of self, or worshiping a Horus, or worshiping a Ra, or whatever. Worshiping an Amen or Allah. If it's a worship as an outside, then that's the misalignment of the mind.
But even the energy around the word worship means external.
Means what?
Means external. It's outside.
Yeah. And it's a warship. Warship.
Because if it's internal, it's acknowledgement.
Right. Yeah.
It's knowledge. Gnosis.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So continue on. What else has got?
Well.
Been a busy 24 hours for you.
Uh-huh. But as we've been talking, more is falling into. So pieces that I talk about aren't necessarily sometimes pieces I didn't see before, but I didn't see them in connection to other pieces.
Right. Yeah. Talking about it and piecing them, threading them together, they can fall into place. They take in more context.
Hence, let's go back to death is in the thread. That's been driving me nuts for the last 2 days. So that's probably how all this got started. Is when something drives me nuts, that's whenever I know I'm on to something. When it's driving me nuts, it's like, damn it, I know it's like an egg to crack, but I'm not cracking it yet.
Just see the egg.
And right. I know because I'm banging on the egg, it's not going to open. Okay. So this morning I wrote down, reap what you sow. Because it just popped into my mind. Well, as I was looking up, I knew that horn thing that was blown something popped up about that for me today, was about that horn thing that was, because when I first saw the video, I thought, well, that's interesting. It didn't throw up a radar for me at first, because I didn't identify that horn as being a ram horn. If I would have known it was a ram horn, I would have been like, oh shit.
Triggered it quicker.
But
yeah.
I didn't know it was. I saw it as a shofar, and I had not looked that up yet. Shofar, which is a ram horn. And the ram horn is connected to all this stuff that we've been dismantling with the cabal and the Illuminati around the Satan worshiping outside of self. All of these like occult kind of things that have been happening in the background with people in our politics and people in Hollywood. It all goes back to that horn.
The symbol. Did you hear the words of what the rabbi was saying?
I did the day that I first listened to it. I didn't listen to it again today.
Very interesting, because some of the things that triggered awareness for me was he talking about being outside of yourself, the separation of having to give yourself over, and that God's doing this. And he accepted and acknowledged Jesus, Yeshua, as Messiah, which from a Jewish standpoint has never been the case.
Mm-hmm.
So there was all kinds of different little things that were going on, and that it was just his son Jeshua or Yeshua for the for needing the blessing. That there was a disempowerment of still keeping it separate and putting, it said, was built on you. So he would say something about putting this on you, meaning that you were below and having to exalt something above them rather than acknowledging what was in them as creators.
Yes.
So it's the whole thing is the little subtleties of thinking something is good, and it's a manipulation of the belief system that takes something that is perceived as being good when you're coming from an unworthy standpoint, and needing to give it over. So like inside our inner knowing, what was coming up for me when you were talking about deity is that you can't stop our true nature of who we are, but you can misinterpret what you feel is you and say it's a deity. So if they put something that is a creative force that is within, and from turning inside out, put that as a deity outside of yourself, that is a creative force. Now you have an explanation for understanding that inner version of creation for yourself. You just don't believe it's you.
Right.
Putting it into a deity. If there was no deity and if there was no acknowledgement of that, this whole thing would fall quicker, because there's already that inner knowledge or inner knowing of the creators we are. As long as there is a place to explain it away and to put people's beliefs into it, they will continue to put their energy there, and it helps justify that inner knowing of that creator. It's very subtle and very subversive at the same time.
Because from the man's viewpoint of the left eye, it's an understand, that under loop. And from the ones who are loosing the energy, it's an overstand. To get to the inner stand is to understand that it's inside and not outside. So it's nothing that's above or below. It's inside. Yeah, the whole word thing really helps to bring it. It helps to dismantle it within me whenever I'm using the words. That's why I like to use it in my writing and sometimes when I'm speaking now.
Right. Yeah, my sense is you're disconnecting the network in you,
Mm-hmm. As
specifically
I
on
talk, yeah.
the words, but it's not other people that may be hooked up the same way will connect to it viscerally in a way that other people that may not have that same connection won't necessarily follow the tracking of what your disconnecting process is and what it's going through.
Yeah, and I know that that's not my job to try to even
No.
but I don't put any effort there. I just do for my now. And there's plenty of people on this planet that are starting to express things in their own way. And everybody gets the same choices. Just because this is my inner journey doesn't mean it's going to be the same as someone else's, but we can all end up in the same place. Yep. In our own language. Like I said, my friend Mike, it's like I'll look at his stuff and it's like, okay, I know that's truth, but I'm not following how he got there. I'm like, and that's why I was getting frustrated. I was like, okay, that's because it's not your language. Like you can look at it and know it's truth.
Right.
But
Resonant.
the person may not be speaking your language, but that is your job to find your own language. To know it through your own language. Yeah. That's the inside job. Yeah. So the whole reap what you sow then brought together for me, death is in the thread. Because reap could be spelled as reap as in reaping the benefits, or the grim reaper, which is death. And then what you sow is what you literally sow with thread, but what you're cultivating in your life, which is part of your second chakra, your creation. What are you cultivating? What are you creating? Are you cultivating your highest truth? And are you expressing your highest truth, your authenticity? Or are you cultivating something else?
Which wolf are you feeding?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Are you feeding the left wolf or your soul?
Yep.
And this side is the dog, or Anubis. Anubis.
Anubis.
Anubis.
A new bus.
I'm going to make fun of his name. Maybe I'll irritate him. Anubis. Aspus. Are you following the ass?
If you're not the lead ass, use all the same.
What do you think? Are you following the asshole? Asshole, Satan, Anubis. Let's see. How else can we put it?
Venus.
Anything that reverses the Kundalini, which has to do with things going up the ass, to reverse the Kundalini energy, to be loosed, asshole. It has to do with the raping of the young child, whether it is in a physical sense or a energetic sense that happens before the age of 3.
Actually, it can happen in the womb as well.
Mm-hmm.
before physical birth.
Yeah. I started realizing that while we were talking, I was like, ooh, this thing, it can happen before. It can happen non-physically or physically.
Yeah.
So it's probably both.
That's what happened to me. My awareness. It happened still in utero, both physically and energetically. And it happened through physical abuse taking place through my mother at the time of development multiple times. That's why I had a hard time connecting with it, is because there wasn't like physical memory. The cognitive energy wasn't there as far as cognition from the mind, because it wasn't developed in the fetus, but energetically it took place. So the energy signature was there without any physical memory.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's what brings up for me the whole compassion thing, because I know a lot of these who've been playing these dark roles, they just don't know that what they're doing is not serving them, if there is a way that they can get everything they wanted and more.
Right.
And that it's flipped. They don't realize they've been manipulated.
Yeah, they're just living what they've been taught and what they've learned. It's been such a linear generational process now. People have lost touch with the...
Right. So is it the point where we got flipped inside out and then we kept cycling through this fake hologram that's not real? So we kept going into the white light and getting our memory wiped. And it's our awareness. That's one of the things I realized last night. It's not that we're changing physical bodies. Our awareness thinks we're changing physical bodies.
Right.
But it's the awareness that's moving, not the physical body. And that's why we move our awareness through time. We get to experience the physical healing.
So here's something for you to think about, and I'm still processing it on the inner for this. When we're working off of what you're calling the left side, we move through time. When we process through the right side, time moves through us.
Right. So it's linear in time versus no time.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you say, yeah, we're working or moving through time, that's us moving through time being outside of us. And we are an experience through a thread in that timeline that we're experiencing focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the bridge over the atmosphere.
Versus time moving through us, and then we stop and go through time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're eliminating this part.
Corpus callosum.
Separation. Yep. Yep. Pretty cool.
It's a lot.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Opening something. I mean, there was enough that had to open for you for all of this to fall into place the last 24 hours. So that means it's huge movement.
Yeah, and then when I sent you that video, I was like, oh my God, I've got to get in the shower. I was like,
yeah. Yeah. Interesting video. Not even just the video itself, but also the context of what's being posted and part of that manipulation. So there's so much right now that's moving into playing old tricks off of religion. So when you were saying religion and legion, legion was actually the name of a dark angel in biblical terms.
Yeah,
Look
for
it
me,
over.
legion represents not just one, it represents an energy, but also a group of energies.
Collective of some,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I'll have to go back. Yeah, I understand that, but I was recalling something around Legion. I'll have to go refresh my memory what it is. It's like kind of tangible, but it's not, I don't have a grasp of it fully.
What I did was I put up angel on one side. On the other side, I wrote Legan. And then between them, I wrote angle with a plus sign. And below that, I put angle with a negative sign. And that each of those represent the wings that we created for angels, what represents an angel in our mind. And that when we're looking at the positive angle, we see the wings, which are also part of that triangle that I was talking about here in the head. And I think I'm seeing it as a triangle this way because for me, it represents something else I'd have to show you in a drawing of how the energy comes up, moves over the bridge from left to right, and then moves up. But before it moves up, it moves back. And then it comes forward at a 45-degree angle, and then it goes a 45-degree angle up. But you also have the other half of it that's taking place at the same time.
And what is that representing to you?
That's how the Kundalini energy is moving through. That's the thread that's going through our system. But we don't have to sit there and figure out how to thread it literally, which is taught, I think in some of the systems. You can see it more as just an energy moving up like a vortex. And the understanding or the understanding, and I can start off as an understanding that the left of what it represents and what the right represents, because the more that's moved from here to here, the discernment broadens. And every time it broadens, you start to understand more of what's still here so that you can move it here. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Because a lot of us here, we're automatically, it's like our automated program. We don't know what we don't know. But when we do know something and we say, okay, now I'm aware, and you physically say, I'm moving that from left to right. And so sometimes when I first started doing this, I would literally take my eyes from the left and move it right. Or I'd see a river running from left to right, and I'd pop it in that river and watch it go down the river moving to the right. Or I'd be laying in meditation on my side, and I would see myself in my mind's eye move it from my left over a bridge to the right. And I knew there was a bridge there, but I didn't know what I know now about the bridge.
Which is, you talked about the silver on the bridge.
Well, the bridge is also a recognition of the inside universe.
Okay.
It's your sphenoid. It's your alchemy. It's where we're turning silver into gold. And so for me, I've had silver building up on my bridge because I was noosing here. And there's a whole nother thing around the noosing, that I could talk about, but I could go into more detail, but I think that's enough for today. But this is just kind of where I know my energy has developed over the past 24 hours.
Yeah.
The understandings of what I can actually verbalize to someone. There's some of it I cannot verbalize. It's just an inner experience. Like I can't verbalize what I'm feeling in my body, but I know that there's a breakdown happening.
Yeah.
And it's a mix of like an anabolic, catabolic experience. And when I know the catabolic part is when I can sit here and watch my muscles move in my leg. I'll literally sit down in the chair and my muscle starts to move all by itself. And I'm going, okay, that looks like something out of a scary movie.
It's like a possession underneath where you can see the movement of the muscle and the skin moving.
But for a while, I was reacting to it. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not getting enough of this or enough of this or enough of that or blah, 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 blah. That nurse in me puking all over the place. Yeah. But also helps me to relax into those experiences because they're painful. To relax into those experiences because I know it's just the inner war that's being, we'll say, alchemized, neutralized.
Yeah. Being moved into right alignment.
Right, right. So as these things are surfacing with this whole conversation, it's neutralizing the war that's been inside of my body.
Yeah.
Which is in alignment with Mars, which is in alignment with Orion, the planet, that I just wrote about, a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So all of that I've been writing about, it's fun to see it kind of deepen, the understanding deepen, and realize that what you wrote about had even more of a significance than you even knew at the time you wrote it.
Yeah.
Like my video about no time. I didn't even fathom the significance of it in the near future. I only saw it from the aspect I was experiencing it in that now. But in this experience of the now, I see the significance of what I shared at that time.
Yep. Consciousness as it shows up like in movies, and the directors don't necessarily know what the depth of the different things that they can show or what they're revealing. It's just consciousness working
Right. Yeah.
doing through us.
Same with artists who are painting their paintings and people who are telling their stories in writing, creative writing, which, by the way, I found a creative writing group that I'm going to.
Oh, did you? Cool.
Yes. Can't wait.
Locally in your area, yeah.
I don't even know if the style which I write is considered creative writing, and I just told them straight up, I'm like, I'm not sure what you're asking because I didn't go to school to be a writer. I just write. So I'm just like, I write because I enjoy writing. I write what comes through me. I don't know what else to tell you because I couldn't answer their questions about what kind of writing do you do? Or what genre or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I just write.
Right?
Right?
Yep. That's why the brain has to have labels and all these categories and all of the other. It's like, nope, I write. I express myself and writing and yeah.
So it'll be fun because, yeah.
When do
So
you
I got
meet?
that. This Tuesday, day after tomorrow.
Okay.
And tomorrow I meet with the mastermind group. And I'll get a sense of what they do. I know that it's kind of like a book thing that they got going on, but just a little conversation that I had with the person who invited me, I'm like, I don't care what they're studying, but what they're talking about is exactly what I'm experiencing. And it'll give me space to express the experience and let them teach me about what they're learning.
What's the mastermind group for?
It's not for anything.
Okay. Just
It's,
people getting together and they're calling themselves a mastermind and it's for discussion and
well, like I said, it's a book group. So they,
same group. I thought they were maybe two
right.
different mastermind and the writing group. Okay.
No. So they'll read a book and they come together and talk about it. That they're all kind of following the same kind of stuff that I'm experiencing, and that's why I got invited.
Okay.
So when I was talking to this guy, he's like, that's all along of what he goes, have you heard of this person? I'm like, sounds familiar. I think so, but it's not somebody, I haven't like picked up this person's books and read them.
Yeah.
And he wrote, like, I think he said in the 30s or something. So I haven't, I never went and looked for his books. I'm going to go to the group and just see what develops.
Cool.
I know it's around, some of it's around theosophy and theology. It's the way this person was identified. No, I wouldn't identify them that way, the way they were described to me.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Should be cool. Get together and see what kind of experience it firsthand being there.
well, he and I talked for like an hour, and we could have talked for hours. So it was a similar, because of what he had learned through this person who's written like 200 books on whatever subject he wrote on. It created a way for us to dialogue. So it's like same energy, just different.
Right.
The same different came up still.
Cool.
It was like finding unity, even though we're having a similar journey. It was in a different way, and finding enough unity in what excites him and what excites me that we had a very good conversation.
Connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. No, I look forward to hearing how it goes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did get on the meetup.com to see if there was what else is going on in this area. And that's when I found the writing group. And I was like, oh, well, there's one. I'll go to that.
So there was something that came to mind a couple times as you were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt you, so I kind of got back burner, and it's coming up to the forefront again. Check out a book, because you kept talking about in tow and towing something and energetically in towing and carrying things with you. So the book that I was talking to you about with the author, that's the physicist that deals in consciousness, he's got a trilogy of books called My Big Toe.
My Big Toe.
There are 3 books in the series, and Thomas Campbell is his name. So I mentioned it yesterday, but the books just came up, and when you were talking about toe and different kinds of toe.
Yeah. Because the in toe then brought up for me the second toe thing that, I told you yesterday. I've got both of my second toes on both feet. I've had this white, kind of dusty kind of fungus growing on. It's the top layer of the nail. It's not like it's all the way. It's the weirdest. But I knew it was a fungus, and it wasn't going anywhere, and it wasn't spreading. But it reminds me of the white spots that I was telling you about that were on my skin that are going away. Because when I scratch the surface of them, it's kind of like a white film that comes off and then it peels off. So I think there's a connection between the melanin in our skin, those white spots, and the white fungus. But I know that these energetic beings, that's kind of how they manifest in a physical way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Be cool. See if what gets connected there. If anything. Yeah. Cool. Good. Well, feels pretty complete at this point.
Yep. Yep. That was a load.
It was a load. Kind of just feeling the sense of all of it right now, and it just feels like it's a good breather time.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. That was a load. That was how long we've been on here. I can't even tell.
I don't know.
A couple of hours.
A couple hours. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 10 till 2 when we got started. We took like a 5-10 minute break, so it's about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yep. Good place to stop.
Yeah.
Stop this recording here.
I think you'll like Interstellar too. I don't want to say much about it because I just kind of, when you get a chance or when it's